Ladies and gentlemen, I yield the floor to the President of the United States.
Well, when I left Scranton today, I wanted to go to the war memorial that has the names of all the Scrantonians who died in World War II etched into a granite wall, because I wanted to see where my Uncle Bosey Ambrose J. Finnegan, where his name was etched. Back when D-Day occurred, and on Sunday, the next day, my mother's four brothers all went down to the recruiting station and joined the military. Every one of them volunteered. And my uncle, they called him Ambrose, they called him Bosey. My Uncle Bosey was a hell of an athlete, they tell me, when he was a kid. And he became an Army Air Corps before the Air Force came along. He flew those single-engine planes as reconnaissance over war zones. And he got shot down in New Guinea. And they never found the body because there were a lot of cannibals for real in that part of New Guinea. And then my son volunteered to go to Iraq for a year, and he came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. And they gave, like many of you, risked your lives, and you know people who gave their lives for the country. They're heroes. But one of the things that as I was doing that today, I was reminded of what my opponent said in Paris not too long ago. They asked him to go visit American grave sites. He said no, he wouldn't do it because they were all suckers and losers. I'm not making that up. The staff who was with him acknowledged it today. Suckers and losers. That man doesn't deserve to have been the commander-in-chief for my son. Uncle. So folks, we got a lot of work to do, but I'm confident we can do it, and I mean it. I've never been more optimistic about our possibilities as a nation. So let's go out and get them. Remember, we're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity, nothing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where Uncle Bosey's been shot down, shot down, shot down. Uncle Bosey's been shot down low. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I'm your eponymous host and humble servant, Jim Eagle. I'm going to be honest with you here. I might actually change your name to Uncle Bosey. Did it ever occur to me that Joe Biden would say something I loved as much as Jim Eagle? No, it did not, but here we are. This story has everything you want from a great Joe Biden anecdote. He starts off with a little nugget of something truthful, then piles layers and layers of bullshit on top of it until he's left with something at the end that bears little resemblance to what he started out with. But it sure was a fun journey, getting from point A to point B, wasn't it? But we better get started with the fact check, because there is much to unpack here. Let's start off with the things that Joe got right. Uncle Bosey really did exist. His name was Ambrose J. Finnegan, and I guess Joe ain't lying about being Irish, because that name makes me want to fucking ass-fuck a leprechaun while kissing the goddamn Blarney Stone. And Uncle Bosey really did serve in the Army Air Corps, and he really did perish in a plane crash in the vicinity of New Guinea. Every other detail Joe got, as you might expect, completely wrong. So no, as much as I hate to be the one to break it to you, Uncle Bosey was not eaten by cannibals. And he wasn't flying a single-engine plane, and he wasn't doing reconnaissance, and he wasn't shot down. In point of fact, he was a crew member on a Douglas A-20 Havoc, a two-engine bomber. And according to the Pentagon's Defense POW-MIA accounting agency, the plane containing Lieutenant Finnegan suffered a double-engine failure on takeoff from New Guinea on 14 May 1944 and had to ditch in the water. 4 crew members were aboard, 3 perished, 1 survived. One of them was not Uncle Bosey. And the cannibals did not get a free meal, though the sharks might have. Now, if there's anything we know about Joe Biden by this point, It's that he really enjoys coming up with new and inventive ways to put the ball in the back of his own net. Unforced errors, as they call them in tennis. So you're going to Scranton. Fine. You're going to give some brief remarks in a family restaurant. Fine. Then you're going to trot on over to the local war memorial and pay tribute to your beloved Uncle Bosie, whom you never met, not even as an infant, because you were born in November of 42, and you just said Uncle Bosie enlisted right after Pearl Harbor, which you accidentally called D-Day. Well, we'll get to that later, because you're Joe Biden and stepping on rakes is what you do. So that dude was long gone before you ever arrived on the scene, Joe, is all I'm saying, but let's set that aside for the moment. The point is, there's nothing wrong with the original plan here, and you should be able to get through it without making a complete and utter buffoon of yourself, and here's how you do that. You go to one of your staffers, and you say, "Staffer, I was thinking about mentioning my Uncle Bosie today. He did some kind of airplane thingy in the war, and I think he died somewhere in the vicinity of New Guinea doing something or other. But the finer details are escaping me at the moment. I don't want to embarrass myself, so could you please call up the Pentagon for me and fact-check my story before I go out there and tell it?" And that's all it would have taken. Problem solved. And will someone please explain the cannibalism thing to me? Because the reference to cannibals, I thought it was pretty out of left field, frankly. Like he got to the end of the story and thought, I just didn't make that exciting enough, did I? Maybe I should throw in some cannibals for a nice closing flourish. He even said they never found his body. Which is another pretty serious problem because, Joe, you stated your apparent belief that 1, Uncle Bosie was flying a single-engine reconnaissance plane, which is wrong. 2, that he was shot down, which is wrong. 3, that he came down on land, which is wrong. And 4, that an effort was undertaken to locate his remains, which is just laughably, hilariously wrong. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this to the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, but here we are, I guess. If it's World War II and a single pilot in a single plane goes missing in a combat zone, nobody is going looking for his ass. What, you're going to send a freaking platoon of infantrymen into the middle of the jungle looking for Uncle Bosie's corpse? So they can all die of beriberi and get eaten by fucking cannibals? Now, I'm not a very big fan of playing the what if it was Trump game. I'm going to make an exception here because can you even imagine the days-long rage-gasm orgy that would ensue in the fake news performance artist community if Donald Trump first got D-Day mixed up with Pearl Harbor and then declared that New Guinea is crawling with man-eating cannibals? Hell, they wanted to impeach him just for calling Haiti a shithole country, which, of course, it is. And credit where it's due. Nobody can get as many things wrong in one sentence as Joe Biden can. Case in point is where he says, when D-Day occurred, the next day on the Sunday. That's a 9-word sentence fragment. And he gets at least 3 things wrong. First of all, he doesn't mean D-Day, which actually happened a month after the death of Uncle Bosie for fans keeping score at home. So I'm guessing his cadaver didn't go down to the recruiting office on June 7th of 44 is all I'm saying. He means Pearl Harbor. Of course. Now, who would mean the one thing and say the other? Joseph R. Biden Jr., that's who. Literally nobody else would. Not even the bastard lesbian love child of Kamala Harris and Baghdad Buckwheat would say D-Day when they meant Pearl Harbor. And then he says the next day on the Sunday. No. The event you're attempting to reference, the Pearl Harbor attack, that was on a Sunday. Sir, you stupid man. What the hell kind of American doesn't know that? I mean, seriously, have you ever met a man so senile he forgot the difference between D-Day and Pearl Harbor? Because I myself have not. Because who among us hasn't heard 1,000 times the recording of FDR saying, yesterday, Sunday, December 7th, 1941? So to recap, he says Pearl Harbor, which he calls D-Day, was on a Saturday, and then the next day, on a Sunday, all his male relatives went down to the recruiting office. Which would have been a wasted trip because the recruiting office wouldn't be open on a Sunday. Just like there wouldn't be 2 gay men tongue wrestling on a public sidewalk in downtown Scranton in 1957. That's what love looks like, Joey. Just like Beau Biden didn't die in combat in Afghanistan while also dying in combat in Iraq, while being overcome by toxic burn pit fumes, while carrying his wounded buddy on his back, while also dying of brain cancer in Delaware. If that dude had any more deaths, he would be a cat. Now, this should have been a layup, politically speaking. And when your numbers are in the toilet right across the board because you're the worst president in history, needless to say, you're not in much of a position to be missing layups. You'll notice also that Biden's people are deathly terrified of putting him in big venues with large crowds because he will just get shouted down by the Hamasnik terrorist sympathizer wing of the Democrat Party whose votes mean so very much to him. And here's the most confusing thing of all. Why did he think the story needed to be embellished with guns and cannibals? Is there something wrong with the actual story? I can't imagine what. I had an uncle who died in a bomber crash in New Guinea during the war. I wanted to go over to the memorial and see where his name is etched. That would have been great. That's perfect. He could have had a decent day on the campaign trail for a change. Again, this was a layup. And here's where we have to wonder, because it's impossible to know, does he know the actual story and think that it requires embellishment, or is he just repeating some sort of family folklore bullshit version of the story that's developed over 80 years? Like when Elizabeth Warren grabs you by the arm and goes, "Damn it, Grandpop said we have high cheekbones because of our Cherokee heritage. You racist." I mean, I think I can understand why he would turn it into a shoot down instead of an engine failure, because to a guy like Joe Biden, a combat death is much sexier and more noteworthy. But the part about the cannibals, I ain't gonna lie, it's got me pretty perplexed, and it gets worse the more I think about it. Because I don't think there's any certainty on what he actually meant by it, frankly. They never recovered his body because there was a lot of cannibals, he says. And this could mean one of two things, in the estimation of this reporter. It could mean, one, that the cannibals ate Uncle Bosie, and that's why they never went looking for him, or two, that they didn't want the guys doing the searching to get eaten by the cannibals. And are cannibals even carrion eaters? Because I've never heard that they were. If a dude dies in a plane crash in the middle of cannibal country, don't they probably just leave his dead ass to be consumed by the beasts of the jungle? We're freaking cannibals here. We ain't barbarians. Jesus Christ. Did I expect that I would be talking about the dietary habits of New Guinea cannibals tonight? No. I did not. But hey, when the jokes write themselves, I think it's the least he can do to make up for the fact that everything I buy costs 40% more than it did when his wrinkly old ass showed up. But we should close here on a serious note by saying, to 2nd Lieutenant Ambrose J. Finnegan, Army Air Corps, Scranton, Pennsylvania, serial number 42-866768, we join with the President in saluting his service, in recognizing his heroism and his devotion to duty, and humbly do we thank him for paying the last full measure of devotion and laying down his life in the cause of freedom. Let neither him nor any of his fallen patriots be forgotten. May we remain ever a grateful nation. Thanks ever so much for watching. See you Sunday, Blast Radius, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.